With so much information out there, KREM 2 News is dedicated to helping you distinguish between what's true and what's false. I'm Mark Hanrahan. Our Verify team provides trustworthy, transparent information on stories or claims that need clarification or correction. Here now are some of our recent Verify stories. The policy at the center of this debate is the Climate Commitment Act passed by the democratically led state legislature and signed into law by Governor Inslee last year. It means that starting in January, many companies that emit CO2 gases will be charged a carbon offset fee based on how much CO2 they produce. The more emissions, the higher the fee. Now, to be clear, that's not the same as a gas tax that consumers pay on top of every gallon of gas. It's a fee that companies who produce CO2 emissions pay. And Joel Cresswell with the Washington Department of Ecology says drivers likely won't notice the immediate impact on gas prices.
What should drivers in Washington expect come 2023?
I don't think anybody is going to sit there on January 1st and say, price just went up a bunch. It must be those new carbon regulations Ecology put in place. I really don't think it's going to be noticeable.
But some say the carbon offset fee that companies will have to start paying will be passed down to consumers. And this story by the Washington Policy Center with the headline, State's new tax on CO2 emissions projected to add 46 cents per gallon to the cost of gas, is leading a lot of you to reach out to the KREM 2 Verify team. Viewer Brandy asks, is Washington putting another 46-cent state tax on each gallon of gas over the existing gas tax?
Can you describe how we came to the figure of 46 cents additionally per gallon?
So the way the system works is that for every metric ton of CO2, gas sellers have to buy a permit. Department of Ecology estimates that permit will cost $58 for every metric ton. That translates into 46 cents a gallon. So yeah, there's a bit of math behind it. But again, these are the Department of Ecology's estimates on how much it will cost to buy permits to emit CO2.
However, others disagree with that math. The Department of Ecology, which is tasked with implementing Washington's new policy, argues that Meyer's analysis is overly simplistic and doesn't account for other market variables.
The trouble with how Mr. Myers approached these calculations in his piece is that, he did do some math that's just not math that's reflective of reality, because in the real world, we know that there are a lot of different market players, right? There's not one gas station in the world. There are a lot of gas stations, and there are a lot of different brands of gasoline and diesel. And so there's competition, and there are different market effects. And so, the price that consumers pay is going to be influenced by all of those factors. I'm highly confident it's not going to be 46 cents per gallon. That would be very different from what we've seen in the other states that have implemented these policies.
For insight, we turn to Colin Murphy, the Deputy Director of the UC Davis Policy Institute for Energy, Environment, and the Economy. He says in the first 5 or 6 years of California's program, which is similar to Washington's, drivers did not see gas prices increase any larger than a cent per gallon.
Come January 1st, 2023, you don't think drivers in Washington will see 46 cents additional per gallon tacked on to what they're currently paying for gas as a result of this new law?
Absolutely not. I think there's no chance of 46 cents in the first year. There's no chance of 46 cents in the 5th year. 10th year, highly, highly unlikely you would get to 46 cents, but impossible to completely rule out.
So we can verify, no, this is not a new gas tax. It's a fee that companies who emit greenhouse gases pay. Now, some argue that will hurt consumers in the long run, but whether that's true and how much it will cost drivers will depend on many factors and is yet to be seen. They are the latest set of traffic cameras to be installed in Spokane. 3 new school-zone speed cameras just went up outside of schools on the South Hill. That brings the total number of speed cameras to 8 citywide, along with 15 red light cameras at 10 different intersections. The city leases the cameras from a third-party vendor, Arizona-based Vero Mobility, who also processes the violations that are sent to drivers. And KREM 2 viewer Sam asks, do you have to pay traffic light picture tickets that are billed from an out-of-state address? Our sources to verify this question are Washington State Law, the Spokane Police Department, and attorney Dean Chuang. To be clear, the cameras are perfectly legal under Washington law. RCW 4663-170 allows for the use of safety cameras in several areas, including at stoplights and in school zones. But since they're processed by a third-party out-of-state vendor, are you required to pay the ticket?
Yes, they are.
That's attorney Dean Chuang. In 2011, he successfully argued that tickets generated by red light and speed cameras were not valid because at the time, they were not first signed by an officer in Spokane before they were mailed to the driver.
So when you issue an infraction, you have to sign it under penalty of perjury, and that location of the signing actually has to be the actual place you were at. They were signing it out of Tucson, I believe, but the officer initiating the signature was actually in Spokane, so that was deemed invalid by Superior Court.
But following that ruling, SPD changed its process. Now each ticket is reviewed and signed electronically by an officer in Spokane before they're mailed out. Sergeant Teresa Fuller, who runs SPD's traffic division, says the courts have also since come to recognize electronic signatures as a valid way to sign tickets.
It's the same as a ticket I would hand you in person now. I don't even sign those. It's all electronic, and the court recognizes that as a feasible option for us.
Sergeant Fuller says no tax dollars are used for the cameras, and she adds they're an effective way for the city to reduce crashes and slow drivers down in school zones. She explains how the tickets are processed.
They do 95% of our work for us. They do the front end of the tickets, they handle all the data, they run the license plates for us, they make sure it's a good violation and that you're not being waved through by a police officer, or it's not one of us with our emergency lights on. They vet all of that, so by the time it lands on my officer's desk, he issues about 95% of the incidents that they send him.
She says think of the tickets like a parking violation. They don't go on your driving or employment record. So finally, what happens if you don't pay them?
And then if you don't pay that, they're going to treat it as a parking violation. And in the end, if it gets recorded to the Department of Licensing, you can't renew your registration.
So we can verify that even though red light and speed zone tickets are processed by a third-party out-of-state vendor, yes, you still have to pay them. For a long time, sick days and vacation days were tracked separately, but now many companies are moving to a different paid time off system that lumps them together. Laura asks, in the state of Washington, can an employer combine sick days with paid time off? Let's verify. Our sources are Washington State Law and the Washington State Department of Labor and Industries. The Washington Administrative Code includes a section on paid time off or PTO programs. It defines PTO as a program that combines vacation leave, sick leave, or other forms of leave into one pool. The code states that PTO satisfies the requirement to provide paid sick leave as long as it meets several requirements. Those include normal hourly compensation for PTO hours, the same minimum accrual rate as the state's sick leave laws, which is 1 hour for every 40 hours worked, and carryover for at least 40 hours of unused PTO to the following year. The State Department of Labor and Industries adds that employers are required to have a written paid sick leave policy before implementing a program like PTO. So we can verify, yes, PTO programs that combine vacation and sick time are legal in the state of Washington. If you have a story you'd like verified, reach out to me. You can send an email to verify@krem.com or text us your Verify question to 509-448-2000. We have a lot more Verify content available right now on KREM 2 Plus. Just navigate to the Verify tab at the top of your screen. I'm Mark Hanrahan. Keep it here on KREM 2 News for more Verify coverage.